At 2:15 a.m. on December 18th, 2025, the Kerch Bridge ceased to be a symbol of permanence. In a single blinding moment, 500 tons of Russian high explosives, hidden behind white banners and Christmas slogans, were vaporized in a fireball that tore through the night sky. On Russian command screens, waveforms spiked, cameras flared white, and operators stared in disbelief as electronic jamming, powerful enough to fry consumer electronics, failed to stop what was coming. What was meant to be a geopolitical checkmate collapsed into a brutal lesson in physics. To understand how it happened, the clock has to be turned back exactly 15 minutes. At 2:00 a.m., the Sea of Azov was flat and black, its surface broken only by low winter swells and patches of ice drifting like silent warnings. Skimming just 15 feet above those freezing waves was something that barely registered as real. The Gol M heavy lift drone cut through the darkness with no navigation lights, its silhouette swallowed by the horizon. This was not the sleek electric platform described in defense magazines. This one had been rebuilt in the field, its airframe reinforced, its belly hollowed out, and a gasoline generator bolted into its spine. The engine's growl was muted, but it gave the drone something far more valuable than silence: range and strength. 150 miles away, deep underground in a reinforced bunker near Zaporizhzhia, a Ukrainian operator known only by the call sign Gamer leaned toward his screen. Sweat ran down his temples despite the cold. His breathing was shallow, controlled, deliberate. On the monitor in front of him, a countdown ticked toward zero. 45 seconds until entry into the engagement zone. Beyond that invisible line lay the target. Rolling steadily across the 11.2-mile railway span of the Kerch Bridge was a train Russian state media proudly called the Christmas Peace Train. Its cars were painted white, draped with banners claiming humanitarian aid bound for Crimea. From a distance, it looked almost festive. But physics does not respond to propaganda. Ukrainian satellites had already flagged something wrong. The suspension on the rail cars was compressed to its absolute limit, steel groaning under abnormal weight. Thermal sensors saw something even more damning: concentrated heat blooms radiating from inside multiple cars. Not blankets, not generators. The unmistakable thermal signature of solid rocket fuel motors. This was not aid. It was a fortress on rails. After recent F-16 strikes that embarrassed Moscow, the Russians had not simply repaired the bridge. They had turned it into a porcupine. Panzer S-1M air defense systems sat atop custom-built 100-foot towers, designed to erase low-altitude blind spots. S-400 batteries scanned 250 miles of sky. Heavy anti-drone nets were strung between arches like metallic spiderwebs. In command vehicles near the span, officers sipped tea and watched calm, green screens, convinced nothing alive could punch through this wall of steel, sensors, and jamming. When a lone Magura Sea drone appeared on thermal cameras near the surface, someone probably laughed. The same old trick, they thought, already reaching for targeting controls. They prepared to shred it with 30-millimeter cannon fire. They were right about one thing: it was a trick. They were wrong about where to look. While barrels angled downward toward the water, two Gol M drones were already inbound. The first was loud on purpose, a sacrificial carrier built to be seen. The second was silent, running dark just above the waves, invisible in the clutter of sea and smoke. At 2:04 a.m., the choreography began. Gol M number 1 climbed aggressively to 1,000 feet, deliberately exposing itself to the Russian Big Bird acquisition radar. In a control cabin near Kerch, a Russian operator leaned forward as a solid return bloomed on his scope. Large air target, bearing 2110. Lock confirmed. The Ukrainian drone responded instantly. Its belly bay doors snapped open, and 6 Wild Hornet decoy drones spilled into the night. Almost simultaneously, underwing pylons released 6 more. 12 cheap frames, nothing more than plywood, motors, and aluminum corner reflectors, scattered outward in all directions. They climbed, dove, and jinked like a swarm of enraged insects. On Russian screens, one radar blip fractured into 13 fast-moving targets. To the fire control computers, it looked exactly like a saturation attack. The Russian commander was not entirely fooled. His eyes stayed on the largest return. "Carrier first," he ordered. "Kill the carrier." On the North Tower, a Pantsir turret slewed with mechanical precision. A 57 E-6 missile ignited and leapt from its rail, accelerating to Mach 3, its seeker locked onto the Golem's heat signature. In the bunker, gamers saw the launch warning flash red. He yanked the controls, banking the heavy drone hard left. But a lumbering mothership could not outrun a hypersonic interceptor. For a fraction of a second, it looked inevitable. Then chaos intervened. One of the decoy FPVs, flying an erratic, drunken pattern, drifted directly into the missile's path. The proximity fuse detonated instantly. The explosion shredded the decoy 200 feet short of the Golem, rocking the larger drone with shockwaves and shrapnel. Its fuselage was peppered, its wings shuddered, smoke trailed from damaged panels, but the gasoline engine kept screaming. Shaking violently, the drone dove toward the sea, slipping beneath the radar horizon by inches. It limped away, mission complete. The Russian commander slammed a fist into his console. He had missed the big fish, but 12 targets were still swarming his defenses, and the night was far from over. At 2:05 a.m., the chaos multiplied. On the water below, a Magura V-5 sea drone surged forward. Its sensors detected radar lock from a Russian Raptor patrol boat, and it executed a sharp 40-degree turn, skidding across the black surface. On its deck, 4 modified FPV drones spun up their rotors. With a high-pitched whine, they lifted vertically from the moving hull and screamed toward the bridge pylons. Now the defenders faced a nightmare in 3 dimensions. 12 decoys diving from above, 4 attackers climbing from the sea, 16 targets converging at once. On the South Tower, a Pantsir commander shouted orders and slammed the system into auto-engage. 30mm cannons opened up, firing 2,500 rounds per minute. Tungsten tracers stitched the water, throwing up geysers around the Magura. The sea drone danced between impacts, dodging like a prizefighter. Then physics caught up. A heavy round punched through its Starlink antenna. The Magura spun, dead in the water. A heartbeat later, a Raptor patrol boat fired a missile, tearing it apart. Russian crews cheered, convinced they had won the naval fight. They looked up too late. The sky over the Kerch Strait erupted. Panzer missiles streaked upward, interceptors chasing decoys in burning arcs. One decoy disintegrated under a continuous rod warhead, shredded into splinters. Another slipped beneath a missile's proximity fuse and splashed harmlessly into the sea before cannon fire tore it apart. Tracers, explosions, and burning debris filled the air. Conscripts on the bridge deck fired PKM machine guns and Igla missiles into the chaos. One FPV took a 7.62mm round straight through its flight controller and spiraled into a concrete pylon, detonating in a sharp flash that scorched the surface but left the structure standing. 2 airborne decoys pulled into steep climbs, baiting the North Tower. The commander took it. 4 missiles launched in 2 seconds, vaporizing both drones in midair. Flaming wreckage rained onto the roadway. Then suddenly the shooting stopped. Smoke drifted across the strait, thick with the acrid stench of cordite and burning lithium batteries. 16 drones had been destroyed. On paper, the defense had been flawless. Inside the command vehicle, operators high-fived, grinning with exhaustion. "Clean sweep," someone said. "They tried to swarm us. We crushed them." No one did the math. Each Pantsir carried exactly 12 ready-to-fire missiles. Reloading took 15 minutes in a crane truck. In 90 seconds of panic fire, the South Tower had burned through 10 interceptors. The North Tower had fired 8. Millions of dollars had been spent to kill plywood toys. At the same time, Krasuka 4 jammers were cranked to maximum power, flooding the spectrum with white noise strong enough to knock phones offline across Crimea. The operators believed they were raising an impenetrable electronic shield. In reality, they were blinding themselves. Ammo counters slipped quietly into the red. Barrels glowed from overheating, and no one noticed that, hidden in the drifting. Smoke, skimming just 10 feet above the waves, Goal M number 2 had already passed through the kill zone. It hadn't fired. It hadn't transmitted. It was waiting. Then Kiev twisted the knife. As Russian crews caught their breath, the Big Bird radar screamed again. High-speed inbound. Bearing Odessa. Mach .9. A single R-360 Neptune cruise missile skimmed the wavetops toward the bridge. With the Panzers empty, the call went to the big guns. An S-400 battery on the Crimean coast engaged. The intercept was textbook. The Neptune exploded half a mile upwind of the span. Russian crews cheered a third time. The cheer died in their throats. The explosion didn't fade. Caught by the sea breeze, it expanded into a dense rolling cloud that swallowed the bridge deck in seconds. This was no standard warhead. Ukrainian engineers had replaced it with canisters of multispectral aerosol smoke and hot metallic chaff. Vision vanished. Thermal cameras bloomed white. Radar returns collapsed into static. For 3 critical minutes, a billion-dollar air defense network stared into nothing. Behind that artificial fog, Goal M number 2 opened its wings. Through its 4K optical feed, the target slid into view as the cloud thinned just enough for cameras, but not radars. The Christmas peace train rolled on at 45 miles per hour, oblivious. Cars 12 through 18 glowed hot red on thermal filters. Solid rocket fuel, target confirmed. "Drop the Vanguard," Gamer whispered. The belly bay opened. 6 Wild Hornet FPVs dropped free, racing toward the train. Guards reacted instantly, firing AK-12s and PKMs from doorways. 2 drones were hit and spun into the sea. A third snagged in the anti-drone net, thrashing helplessly. The defenders were focused on the wrong threat. Above them, clamps snapped open under Golem's wings. 6 more drones fell into the slipstream. These were different. AI-enabled Wild Hornets, each carrying a heavy shape-charge warhead and an onboard NVIDIA Jetson module. The moment they dropped, they cut their radio links, ignoring the jamming entirely. They formed a loose V. The lead drone's sensors detected the steel net. Instantly, the AI executed a coordinated maneuver. All 6 pulled up in unison, rocketing vertically over the net with inches to spare. Guards looked up, eyes wide, as the drone stalled 100 feet overhead, rolled nose down, and locked onto the ammo cars. There were no missiles left. Autocannons were jammed. Radars were blind. Magazines were nearly empty. Gravity did the rest. At 2:15 a.m., the first drone struck Car 14. Its PG-7VL shaped charge detonated on contact, forming a jet of molten copper traveling 25,000 feet per second. It punched through the thin steel roof and into a stack of 122mm artillery shells. The detonation was immediate and catastrophic. A fireball erupted outward at 15,700 miles per hour. 400 psi of overpressure liquefied steel walls and hurled 60-ton wagons into the air. That was only the beginning. Drones 2 and 3 plunged into cars 16 and 17, igniting solid rocket motors. They didn't explode. They burned. Propellant cylinders broke loose, spinning across the deck like fiery pinwheels, spraying flame at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Rails glowed cherry red, then softened, then warped like plastic. The bridge became a 1,000-foot dragon of fire. Secondary explosions rippled as Shahed drone warheads cooked off. Cameras melted. Feeds went white. 500 tons of ammunition, enough for weeks of combat, vanished in seconds. When it was over, the Golem turned back toward Ukraine, leaving a bonfire visible from orbit. The bridge still stood, but its railway span was crippled. Rails fused into slag. Concrete cracked and spalled. No train would cross for months. Russia had spent billions to defend it. Ukraine had spent a fraction. Moscow wanted to send a Christmas message. Ukraine sent it back. Return to sender. Return to sender.